Video I want to share with you three things which we rarely, if ever, consider or even realize as possibilities in our modern paradigm of understanding the nature of health and disease. So, the first thing that we probably never consider is that perhaps we are the actual cause or one of the major causes of our disease or imbalance. And what I mean by that is pulling from the philosophy of Taoism and really ancient, more original Chinese medicine, and understanding the nature of the original self and the acquired self and how that relates to disease. So, to put it in simple terms, basically what happens is we each within us have a core original self or a format or a blueprint or a birthright of potentiality. But then what happens is we come into this world and then we experience trauma, we experience conditioning, we experience other people's trauma and conditioning, and all of these things start to form constraints on the natural flow and functioning of our organism. Plus, we have a whole host of inherited balances and imbalances from our genetic line and from a lot of other variables. But basically, what happens is we end up forming an identity around all of these things. And we end up becoming addicted to the identity because we think that's really who we are. But often that identity is very biased, very polarized, and often very contracted. Because basically, in simplistic terms, the identity and the ego and these ways in which we see ourselves in the world are actually just defense mechanisms. The things that we build up about ourselves and about reality to avoid seeing certain things, to avoid experiencing certain things, and to give us some idea of comfort and safety, which obviously has its usages and has its benefits. It also carries with it its own imbalances because we start to prefer only certain ways of seeing the world and only certain foods and only certain da-da-da. So we have this vast, expansive experience, and then we just basically wither it down to a really small spectrum, which common sense can tell us is maybe not really healthy. I mean, it's not that hard to understand. But what happens is that creates an imbalance in the system, which, based on our constitutional factors and the other factors that we've just said, sets up a certain elemental excess, which creates other deficiencies. So then we, on one hand, we really love this imbalance in this self, but on the other hand, it's actually causing us a great deal of suffering and pain and anxiety, physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. So you can see, hopefully, now how these two things go together and how it's kind of funny when we can look at it. Now, I realize that is maybe a challenge because it's a little bit outside of our modern paradigm, because we say, well, no, I'm sick because I have this virus or I have this bacteria or because my whatever organ doesn't do what it should or something. That's why I'm sick. So then we have to really start to step back and consider, well, what is our paradigm? Is it this mechanical thing? Is this body a Swiss watch? And the only reason we experience something is because one of the gears wears out. We just got to replace the gear and everything's gonna be better. Or is it something more humane, more alive, more dynamic, which can have aspects of the Swiss watch, yes, but maybe that's not the sum totality of what we actually experience as our human life. So the second thing, which is rarely ever considered, is this. So if I were to say to you that you are a certain way just because you happen to be a certain gender or you happen to be a certain race or you happen to have a certain sexual preference, and I were to put a label on that and say you are that label and you are those things because you do maybe three things, or you appear a certain way. So basically what I just described is like sexism, racism, etc., general prejudice and bias. And I think we can probably agree that that's generally offensive and generally not a very accurate or intelligent or humane way of relating to each other. We're all probably on board with that, hopefully. Yet, we have to say, well, that same line of thinking is probably what we do to ourselves a lot, what we do to other people a lot, and what we pay large amounts of money to have done to us. Because the exact formula and logical construct that I just described is basically diagnoses, basically treating disease, which is basically, in some ways, like a matching game. Oh, wait, there's this list of these things which happen, but then there's this list of things that is this, so we're going to try to match these together. And then maybe we have those certain things, but do we have them all the time? Or is it situational? Let's say I have anxiety, I'm an anxious person and I have these disorders. Okay, well, what about when you're asleep? What about the 24 hours of your day? Let's see, we have 24 hours a day. What percentage of that time is spent being the anxious person? Is it 24 hours? Okay, then you're probably an anxious person, but what percentage is it? Okay, and then we have to ask, well, okay, what percentage do you actually have to do or be something before you are that? Or are we starting to slip into primitive and disrespectful ways of looking at ourselves and other people? Just questions to ask. I'm not claiming or asserting anything, just asking questions and opening some reflection. And the third thing, which is also kind of hilarious, is that a lot of the time, each of us know why we're actually sick or diseased or upset or whatever, and we actually know what we ought to do or the next step that we ought to take, or the behavior or the action that we should maybe curb or alter or just eliminate. Most of the time, we all know this. Or we at least know enough to change and do something to get going on the process and not just be stuck in a static place. And it's very rare that someone is just completely clueless. Everyone kind of knows something. And perhaps that's important. Maybe there is something to that. Maybe there is something to us developing a direct relationship with our body's intelligence and our relationship to how we understand cause and effect and how we cultivate our own character and our own countenance and our own lifestyle. How we style our lives. And I think we all know certain things. And the question is, do we choose to do them or not? Sometimes yes, sometimes no. Sometimes we're addicted to the thing which is actually really bad for us. Then we have to realize, well, wait, why am I addicted to harming myself or poisoning or polluting or constraining or limiting or stressing myself? Which leads us and relates back to point 1 and 2, and really you can see how these all really fit each other, and they're in and of themselves have points, but taken together as a whole lead us to a different paradigm, maybe, a different way of understanding ourselves, maybe, and a different way of making decisions and living our lives, perhaps. So anyways, there's 3 things which are really hardly ever considered in the modern world, regardless of its mainstream, allopathic, or alternative, holistic, etc. It's just basic humanness and naturalness is what we're trying to talk about here. So thanks for watching this video. Hopefully you've enjoyed it. Like the video, share it, post a comment, subscribe to my channel, browse around my channel for other amazing videos, and I will talk to you soon.